So welcome. Tonight is our sixth part in this 6-week series. And tonight the focus is on oneness. How are we going to experience oneness? But before I get into the actual presentation, I wanted to let you know that the way to really make the best use out of the Course in Miracles is to weave things together until everything begins to kind of line up and the process begins to be very singular. And by that I mean, the first night we talked about just the Course, how it came about, a little history about the Course. Then the second night, we talked about the distinctions between illusion and reality. And that's when I began to simplify the teachings. There's love, there's fear, there's illusion, there's reality, there's ego, there's God. Once you begin to look at everything as two thought systems, two options, two possibilities, you really make the Course a lot simpler to understand. After we did that second night where we looked at those differences and created those two columns, then I gave you some of the basic principles of the Course. We looked at a bunch of titles of lessons so that you could see that the ego has one way of operating. And then we saw that God's way is totally different. The ego operates from the past. It doesn't know what anything is for. It is always, the issue is never the issue. It is all about separation. It is fear, guilt, shame, blame. And God's way is about we are love, we are light, we are one. It is about giving us a tool through forgiveness to return to oneness. It's all about love. It's just so beautiful. So when you take the Course and you begin to see that there are two distinct ways of being in the world. One is of God and one is the ego's way. Then we looked at relationships last week. And in relationships is where we lose ourselves. We move from being the presence of love, where we are in a holy relationship with ourselves. We cross the bridge and we go into the way of the ego. We create egoic relationships. That is when we descend into hell. We literally leave heaven and we descend into hell because we shift from the knowingness of the truth inside of us and we become outer focused. Once the ego gets developed, we are now thinking by ourselves. We are thinking completely apart from God, and that is what creates our fears. Because the entire thought system of the ego is, I am other than how God created me, so I become my own God. I become my own idol. I begin to worship me. It's all about me, 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 me. But inside of that story that it's all about me, there is also the belief that there's something missing. Because when we don't acknowledge God inside of us, literally there is something missing. What is missing is the truth of who we are. So we operate in a deficit, like we have a hole, and inside of that belief that there is something missing, we then look to others to complete us. And it doesn't stop with others, it goes on to things, it goes on to money, to power, to, what others think of us. So we try to satiate that hole, which is never going to be filled by idols, by outwardly things, worldly things. When we get to the place that we have acquired everything, we've got it all, and we're still not happy, something happens. There's a realization, okay, there's got to be another way. And then starts the journey of healing, the journey of self-awareness, the journey of awakening, whatever you want to call it. And it's a journey of returning on that bridge where we begin to choose again, make new decisions, begin to look at things from love instead of fear. And little by little by little, as we gave up love to descend into hell and live based on fear, we little by little begin to reclaim heaven and let go of fear because we make a choice to just be what we actually are. So tonight in oneness is to paint a picture of what does that look like when we do the healing work and we return to the truth of who we are. What is that? Course in Miracles says that that's when we create a happy dream. That's when we create the dream of being in this world, but not be defined by it. So before we get into the actual teachings for tonight. Joy wanted to share a little bit about her experience. If you guys remember last time, she talked about being part of that dream, that team, or that group that gets together, talk about dreams. Will you go and share that story with us? I love always hearing how things shift, especially after people take teachings from the course and apply them.
So when I spoke about it, it was a week ago today, and the very next night was Dream Group. And it started raining in the late afternoon, and I said to myself, oh, good, it's raining so hard, I know I don't have to go now. I was just making excuses not to go because I was feeling fear of what I would say. So I ended up talking to two friends who encouraged me to move past the fear and to speak from my truth. So I showed up, and they were real happy to see me. 3 dreams were shared, and then I said I'd like to share, but not about a dream. And I said I haven't been really open and vulnerable with you, and so I'd like to let you know what happened for me when we had the potluck. I guess it was 3 or 4 months ago. I said, because I didn't tell you that night. And so I relayed to them that, they were talking about politics, and it went on, and how I wasn't enjoying the food because of the nature of the topics. And I said I wanted you to stop so badly, but I was too afraid to say it. So what I did was I went into the kitchen and I started taking your plates and washing them. I said, I don't know if you noticed that I did that. And that both of the men in the group said they did, and they saw my discomfort. So I owned it with them, and I said, I come to Dream Group to really relax and be in the spiritual mode, and that takes me out. And I said, I didn't know how to say it to you. And so the leader of the Dream Group said, Joy, you could have just said, enough of this, let's go do dreams. And so I wasn't sure if that's how everybody else felt. So I asked them to all share how they felt if I had said that. And a couple of people said it would have triggered them if I told them what to do from childhood. They had childhood issues with that. So out of the discussion, I learned ways that would be acceptable to all of them, where I would say what I was feeling and would they entertain the idea of moving. So they congratulated me for being so courageous and so open with all of them. And they said, we really hope you stay in the group, because I'm not sure if it's coming to an end, and I said that too. But all I know is a heavy weight was taken off of my shoulders, that fear that they wouldn't like me. And I said that. I was afraid you wouldn't like me. I was afraid you would do this, do that. And I said, I'm at a point in my life where it's very important for me to speak my truth. And so it turned out to be really, really good, really good. And so I was helped here that night, how we unpacked it, how you explained some options. You asked me to check in with that still voice inside. And so it was a collaborative effort that paid off.
That is so beautiful. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that, because what had happened is, so here's how I want to review last week's class using your example. So from the moment that we're little, we grow up in families that begin to give us information, and they begin to download into us, they train us, they condition us with a name, with the beliefs of the family, the religion of the family, the politics of the family, the financial status of the family, all of the teachings about right and wrong, who we're supposed to be according to mom and dad and grandma and grandpa and the outer world. So our mind literally gets programmed with information that we learn. The information that we learn begins to teach us how other people are, how we should behave, what we need to do, and it is all about survival. We take in that information, then we begin to see, well, how do I survive with this? We find out that if we're good, we get rewarded. If we're bad, we get punished, and we develop a sense of self. This is our egoic sense of self that then begins to manipulate the world. And we manipulate the world by beginning to move into one of two directions. The ego only operates as bully or as a victim. It's the only two ways that it can go. two sides of the same coin, by the way, which means everybody has both. So the victim is, you hurt me, you're not seeing me, you're not letting me be me. That's a first mistake that we make. You are not letting me be me, as opposed to, because of how you're behaving, I'm not going to let you see the best of me. That would be more honest. But we get trained into, because of you, I can't be me, because mom and dad had reactions to our behaviors, and we began to see that they changed based on what we did. So we begin to change based on what they do or say. So then we begin to develop this idea of victimhood, I can't be myself. Then the bully gets developed, and the bully basically operates in one of two ways. It becomes the passive-aggressive, that real victim-y one, that I can't say anything because nobody's going to hear me. By the way, it's called passive-aggressive for a reason. It's very aggressive. It's very violent to be a victim. And then there's the bully, which is more obvious, which is full-blown aggressive. And these two parts live inside of us. It's part of the ego thought system. So what happens is we begin to see ourselves as unequal to others. We give just enough to get something. We give a smile. If it gets them to be happy, we will go ahead and do the chores if it gets us the dessert or it gets us not get spanked. So we give to get, and whatever we get, we want to protect it. And as children, we begin to develop this very manipulative way of survival. That's all that it is. So what happens is we are sizing up the world, looking for people to fill our sense of brokenness, because we created the idea that I'm not okay because you're reacting to something that I did, so that must mean it's my fault and I'm not whole. So we have this brokenness, which leaves us believing we have a hole somebody else needs to fill. Something else needs to fill it. And of course, we've seen that the ego operates from the past. So this child that has this experience at 3, 4, 5 years old, 30, 40 years later, goes to the dream party. And what happens when she goes to that, what is it called? Dream group. Dream group. I was going to call it a dream team, the dream party. Goes to dream group, and in dream group, people are doing whatever they're doing, and it triggers that little kid. And what does that little kid do? I'm not going to speak up. Was that your primary way of behaving when you were little?
Not in the beginning, but when I spoke out, then I got clammed up.
Okay.
Don't do that. Don't say that.
At about what age did you pick that up?
Probably 2 or 3.
Okay.
Because I was really telling the truth when I was 2 or 3.
So we begin to not tell the truth, but that becomes a passive-aggressive way of saying, because you guys didn't behave, I'm not going to share the best of me. So she pulls away. And then, of course, she's doing the work. You're doing the work, which thank you, because that's the work of reclaiming yourself. Because when we don't use our voice, when we are little and we don't express the truth of who we are as God created us, we little by little create a path by which we descend into hell. And we kind of do this. And those little slats are beliefs that are chosen, create a habit because we repeat them over and over and over and over again. With nobody to question what we're thinking, we think, what do they say? The tests or the studies that have been done, 60 to 80,000 thoughts per day, and roughly 85% to 90% of them are negative because they're fear-based, because we operate from fear. No wonder we're in hell. So you created a way of being in the world, so you became to give love conditionally. You guys are not meeting my conditions, so I'm not going to come back to the group because I will feel safer not being here, which is exactly what the ego wants us to believe, so that we can create egoic relationships, which are nothing more than special relationships. Either you give me love in the way that makes me feel special, and if you don't, then I hate you. So it becomes special hate or special love. And those conditional relationships activate fear and they activate guilt. Because we feel guilty we didn't speak up, or we're afraid that if we say something, they're going to get mad at us, so we prefer to pull away. And this is what we do as victims. But when we are not doing this kind of work, we will turn into that bully if we decide, I'm going to let you know what I think, and then go in there and blast them. So this way of being in the world is what we have accepted as normal. And friends would say, well, you're right in being upset with them. They didn't, it's supposed to be about dreaming and they're talking politics. You were so right in doing what you did, which validates because misery loves company. So what we're doing is we have to move beyond these egoic relationships. And there's only one way out. The only way out of these relationships is to begin to get honest. To get really honest. When you're feeling something, when something is stirring up, you've got to let it rise. Because all of the unpacking that we're doing from childhood, every time we chose to be other than what we are as God created us. When we're not being in the presence of unconditional love, which is you give and receive, you are present in the moment, everybody is equal, you're flowing with whatever is present in the now moment. Because you're flowing from love, from wholeness. There's nothing missing. So to give of yourself, your authentic self, is natural. It's easy. It's effortless. But because we suppress our truth, to begin to adopt is probably the better word, to begin to adopt protective ways of being, we begin to stuff the truth of who we are. That gets shoved down. It gets shoved down. It gets shoved down. So we have been suppressing, repressing all of the emotions. What we wanted to say in the moment when mom and dad were mad at us or sister or brother did something to us, and we would have said in the moment, hey, do you not realize that I am as God created me? I deserve to be heard. I deserve to eat the dessert first if I want to. I deserve to do whatever I want to do because I am an eternal child of God. Because we didn't do that, because we were operating from ego fear, we suppressed our truth and we began to put on a mask. So what do you think the return is all about? We have to feel that discomfort. You got to feel it to heal it. And we are giving voice, moving through the fear. Instead of letting the fear of being found out that we are angry or the fear that we are upset, we have to stand and face the fear that actually what we're doing is we are being manipulative. We are saying, because of you, I can't be me. Mm-hmm. So we've got to step through that and be me regardless of what you think, which is exactly what you did. Amazing things happen because then we begin to create holy relationships. We begin to create relationships with people who begin to resonate at that level. Either they will sit with you in transparency and not take things personal. If they get activated, they know that it's their stuff to unpack. Every irritation is an invitation. When you're conscious that that is the path to healing, is to look at the thing that got irritated as an avenue to go inside and figure out where in childhood did I suppress my voice, you begin to see that there's this incredible gift in relationships that let you be honest because you're reclaiming your truth by speaking it. You have a witness to your truth in that moment. That's what creates holy relationships. Nobody's better or lesser. We are equals sitting here sharing our pain, sharing our discomfort, and holding space for the other without judgment because you understand you're doing the same thing. So that was a perfect share to complete that relationship talk from last week.